Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We'll see.
We are back here with Coaching for Relevance, bringing freedom to potential. How are you, Randy?
Hey, good, my friend. How you doing today?
Fantastic. Can't be better. How's the weather where you are? Probably better than ours,
well,
but
actually, it's a lot better than it was a couple of days ago. So yeah, it's not raining or anything like that. So that's good. It was pretty bad a couple of days ago.
it's warm rain, no?
Well, it depends on what you mean by warm. If you're used to the north
Oh,
pole area, yeah, it's warm.
oh
No,
my goodness.
it's okay. It's I don't know the actual temperature, but it's probably, I'm just guessing, probably around 70-ish,
Beautiful.
60-ish or
That's warm
70-ish. So
rain. That's warm
yeah.
rain to us. Well, great to have you back here. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about what we're going to talk about today. We have a lot going on with this man as a coach, as a pilot, as an author, as so much. So, what did you want to get into today?
What I thought we would do today is to expand a little bit about what I was talking about last week. You remember in the last show, I was bringing out some of the chemicals and reminding people of kind of how the brain works and how different people are different, and you got to interact with people that are different and all that. But I thought I'd bring one sort of concept on it today that really focuses on leaders and what leaders need to be thinking about differently, even about themselves. And because very often the dopamine fix can get in the way and stuff. And so I'll just mention that, but I'm just going to, I'll start out by simply asking one question to get the listeners think about themselves on this one question. And then I'll kind of take a little bit of time and sort of expand on it a little bit and some of that stuff, because you know what, if you're dealing with your people in a way where they're not being developed, they're not growing, they're not becoming, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I would do today. By the way, I'll just kind of share with you too and for listeners, but it's kind of interesting. It sounds like PBNN is going to fly me up to New York to sit, to go on a show that uh, where we're going to be able to focus and talk about the Hollywood movie documentary that's been published for me and all that sort of stuff and everything. So I just found that sort of kind of cool. That just sort of came up very recently. So
Wait to hear.
yeah. So I'll know. But anyway, yeah, that's what I was going to kind of look at today. Just this aspect about true leadership, because you remember the last week when I talked about the neuroscience chemicals that your brain releases. One of the things that I talked about, the fact that you got to have an insight as to how your people are different,
Mm-hmm.
and going just the same way every time is not really going to get them there. And so I thought I would expand on that a little bit, but focus specifically on the leaders
Yeah, sure.
and the managers and kind of focus on one sort of aspect that you need to be aware of for sure.
Got it. Well, let's get started. Randy, by the way, coaching for relevance. He works with people all over the world and he's helping business owners, individuals, and excited to talk to him. Don't forget about his autobiography.
Yeah, thank you. Me up there on Amazon for sure. Yeah, cool. Well, hey, well, I'll tell you what, and I'll just kind of share this with you that that the AEMG guy that's the marketing group for the autobiography movie, and we were on a Zoom call earlier with my colleagues over in Germany because they want to kind of spread the news a little bit and all, but they're also looking at sort of marketing the movie and the autobiography sort of aligned a little bit. But yeah, it's just as a I'm sort of humbled and amazed by it. So yeah, cool.
Hmm.
Well, I tell you what, I'll go ahead and dive into kind of what I'm thinking about today, and it's a key aspect because you remember in our last show, I did talk about the norepinephrine and the dopamine and the
Mhm.
all of that sort of stuff, oxytocin and all of that make your brain do certain things and all. And one of the things in the last show I pointed out was each person on your team is a little bit different. Each person will have those chemicals released, but they don't just reply to them in exactly the same way. And as a leader, you can't just go with academic stuff. And I'll expand on that a little bit here in one sort of application aspect of it, and leave it to the people. But what I will do is I will simply do this, and I'll simply say to anybody who's listening, as you think about yourself, how do you really think about yourself? There, I'm just going to give two ways that one is very dysfunctional and one is very successful and stuff. And the first one is, do you see, and almost anybody that has listened to this or will listen to this probably has had a couple of people in their journey that they've seen do this. But when you think about yourself in leading your team and being in your role area or whatever, do you see yourself as somebody who's just the teller and the dictator and the finger pointer and the one who sits there and tells people what to do and they better do it and all this sort of stuff? Is that how you view yourself?
Hmm.
Or do you view yourself as somebody that it is your role as a leader to truly develop and build your team to the point where they can overcome, achieve, and reach radical success, even if you're not there telling them what to do? Because a lot of people today think that when you go into a challenging situation, which is aligned with my organizational maneuverability concept, a lot of people think that it's just my job. We go in there and it's just my job to tell the people what to do. You need to do this and you need to do that and you need to watch out for that. If that is your mindset when you talk about connecting with and working with your people, that is the most self-interested, arrogant, narcissistic, and unsuccessful way of doing things. If that's something that somebody kind of views, that they're just trying to focus on maybe their boss, patting them on the back because of something they said or something like that, then you are narcissistic in that dopamine fix, which is the chemical
Yes.
that makes you just overly proud and all this kind of stuff. That becomes a driver in you, and you don't want to do that
Yeah.
as a true leader. Because guess what? If you get sick or you're in a car wreck and you go to the hospital, is your team going to be able to perform without you there, and all that? But the bottom line is the real dysfunctional one, and the one that becomes just a strict dictatorial manager, is a person that says that it has this mindset in their mind that it's just my job to dictate to them. It's just my job to tell them and point fingers and tell them what to do and all this kind of stuff. Because if you do that, what you're doing is you're shutting off their brain power and having them, making them throw it in the trash and not think about it. And that is a very dysfunctional aspect that a lot of people don't realize. That's the dysfunctional one. The other one is, as I work with my team, as I'm connecting with them and building within them, first of all, are they truly becoming something, even above and beyond what we were last week or whatever kind of thing? But also, if you think about being a leader, one of the ways that you be a true leader is how you model for them your own personal growth
Hmm.
and development and awareness. When they see that in their leader, they realize the benefit of that, and they realize how that is can be amazing in their journey and in their lives. And but the last thing you want to do is take their brain and just shut it off and have them not think. And one of the things is, are you just waiting for the dictatorial and the dysfunctional aspect? Are you just waiting until you have to tell them what to do? Or particularly in an unpredictable, perhaps changing environment or situation, are you developing them ahead of time so that they can make the right choices at the
Decisions.
right
Yep.
time in the right timing. And the way you do that very often is not just by telling them what to do, but it's helping them get a sense of it. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
questions that you can ask people even before you're there, if you know that your team is starting to move toward a certain accomplishment and hopefully gaining a certain success on something, guess what? One of the things, and I've done this to pilots a lot of times, kind of thing, when I tell them, when you look at going into this, what is the single most unexpected factor that's going to come on scene that you would have never guessed?
Oh,
What does that look like? And you don't sit there and tell them, you don't sit there and dictate to them and push them. But what you do is you have them think within their minds as to what are they going to experience as the greatest risk in this situation, one that they don't realize right now. And then the second question might be, well, if that comes on the scene, what are you going to need to do?
yeah.
You know what? And they start kind of getting a sense of, well, just do this. Okay. What do you mean by that? How's that going to change when this other factor comes on the scene?
Yeah.
And what are you going to do on that? And it's a key aspect of it when you think about this aspect of truly leading your team and leading them in a way that they are developing and they are becoming. And oh, by the way, guess what? In 5 or 10 years when you retire or whatever, guess what? Somebody that was on your team may have been so developed that they are chosen to a higher level of leadership and management in the organization. And yet they have incredible insights, situational awareness,
Wow.
and awareness of true success. And they can model that and build it for everybody else that's under them. And so it's just something to think about, that when you're talking about the aspect of particularly unpredictable and changing and challenging situations or times. And let's face it, in today's world, regardless of what you think, because not everything fits a road academic picture.
Yeah.
And
True.
when you move in a certain direction, it's one thing to say, well, this is what we're going to do. How do you know that? How do you know what factors are going to come on board? What factors are going to come on board to totally throw you into a ditch on this? And
Yeah.
what causes you to not be aware of that? And how are you going to be aware of it? And what are you going to do about it as a team? And so it's just something to think about, that a lot of people in today's world don't really think about so much. But when you're the leader
Mhm.
of your team, you have to understand which one of those two you follow. Is it just that I'm just sitting here patting myself on the back and I'm just going to tell them what to do when we get there and blame it on something out there if it doesn't work right? You're not being a leader and you're not being successful if that's your mindset when you go into the role. But if you are in a role where you're developing your people, and here's a news flash, and this is what a lot of people don't realize, that if as a leader, if you ask that question about to somebody and they ask, and you ask them, what do you think would be the most threatening factor that could come on scene that we don't expect and we're not thinking about right now? What do you think is going to be the worst thing that could possibly happen going forward? They may come up with something that you never thought about.
Yeah.
And it may make, in your mind, it may make you go, oh,
Oh,
yeah.
wait,
And guess
wait.
what? When you and your team have a short conversation about if that happens, how are we going to react to minimize its impact and still achieve success? And how are we going to do that? And how are we going to know that's happening? What are we going to look for in
Yeah.
in the situational awareness of it? So all of this is just one key aspect of what you're talking about when you're aware of the mind and the mental aspects and the neuroscience aspects. Because I'll tell you what, as we talked about last week, if your brain is constantly just releasing dopamine where you just think you're going to get a pat on the back for doing something, guess what? May not. Guess what? What are you going to do? And what are you not aware of that can come on scene? And you know what? From my military background, let's face it, in battle, in a military environment, guess what? That's the thinking you got to, that's kind of the thinking you got to have to be able, because the factors that could come on scene in terms of strategies and all of that kind of stuff could be very different than most people realize. And if you think about it in just a business sense, guess what? You may, be thinking about going in a certain direction, and yet guess what? Possibly the rest of your industry is going in a different direction that you didn't even know about. Who knows? There's just a lot of aspects about factors that could come on scene that people don't think about. And so that's just what I thought I would leave with people as one thought, that when you look at yourself in leading your team in a given environment, which is not always rote academic and all that, do you see yourself? Do you experience yourself as somebody who is just sitting there and it's just my job to tell them what to do when things happen and all this kind of stuff and just tell them what to do and all this? If that's your only mindset, you're not being a leader. You're being a dictatorial, self-controlling manager.
Yeah.
But guess what? You're not in control of everything that you think you are when you're a
Wow.
manager. And so if you do that, that's the dysfunctional aspect on this. But if you work with your team in a way where there is true synergy between you and the people on your team in such a way that you really enhance your situational awareness
Mm-hmm.
and you enhance the possibilities and you create the mindsets of what you need to think about when unexpected factors come on scene, guess what? You're prepared to go forward and reach radical success. And it's just something that a lot of people, don't really think about. But there's a certain neuroscience aspect to that aspect of it. Um, but I just leave that with the listeners, that which one do you see yourself as? Do you see yourself as this one that's just going to wait until when things happen, I just tell them what to do and blame it on with this, that, or the other if it doesn't work out like that? If so, that's the dysfunctional way of doing it. But if you truly build the synergy in your team, that doesn't mean everybody does exactly the same thing, exactly the same way, or whatever. But what it means is they work together in such a way that they're aware of when those sneaky factors come on scene. And guess what? Prior to that happening, you've helped them get a sense of the real situational awareness, and you've helped them get a sense of what might be needed and how are we as a team going to make that happen and overcome that and reach success. And you know what? When you look at so much of my background, both in the military but also in aviation, guess what? When you take off in an airplane, there's factors that could come on scene that you didn't think about. And, how are you as a flight crew going to be able to handle that? And so I
Wow.
just leave that with people when you're talking about this organizational aspect and the sort of the neuroscience mindset to it. I leave people with that aspect about which one of those do you see yourself? And what I would say is
Ah,
if you see yourself as one of the first ones, you want to change that to reach radical success. But if you're part of the second one, think about how you want to really enhance that and improve that even as you go. And also, how can you model that and develop that in your team members also, so that as they go forward, they start doing that
I
also.
would-
So it's just a very interesting difference.
and any updates in your world of aviation for those that don't know your background in aviation and your service to the country and all that you continue to do in leadership? I don't know. I just feel, I'm sorry, but I'm watching Manifest now. And I always think of you because you're the only like real pilot I know.
Well, thank you.
I know, and I'm like, it's every time I see you play and I'm watching a TV show with my kids. Do you ever hear of Manifest or no?
Not off the top of my head. If I
Okay,
saw
but
it,
it's
if I saw it, I might go, "Oh yeah, that got
yeah,
it."
yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I always think about, I feel like I think a pilot must be like, or whether it's military or commercial or whatever, just mileage. No, you might have to have all aspects and wits about you, and you have to be ready to move, to shake, to go, to just make decisions and to lead. Like I feel like the best leaders in the world are probably pilots because the reaction factor that there's so much that's going on in juggling. And I know we've talked a lot about aviation. I always want to ask anything new in the aviation world because this is, you have all the insides and outsides, and people are, talking about flying, and then there's crashes, and of course that happens, but there's car accidents all the time. But why come we don't talk about them? Anything new in the aviation world for us?
Well, nothing like that. But what I will say is this: that when you're talking about leading teams or even teaching pilots and developing pilots and flight crews, one of the things I had a new instructor coming in, and when she heard me as she was listening to me teach a class. She came up to me afterwards and was a little bit blown away because she made a comment about how I bring a lot of the why and the real aspect to the training rather than just
Yeah.
going with road academic things. And part of what you're talking about, if the pilot that you would be talking about has had the kind of training where it's just kind of trying to train you to pass a check ride and go with all these superficial things, they're going to be missing that one aspect of it. And
Mm-hmm.
and so what I mentioned here is actually regardless of who you're leading or training, guess what? Are you really bringing that aspect that really gets their mental processing going, not just to remember rote factoids, but to understand the operational application of it and how the situational awareness truly is and how I should make that right decision on it. And it's not always the same. I know Sullenberger, ditched in the Hudson years ago.
Yeah.
And you know what? Given the situation, he made exactly the right call. A lot
Yeah.
of people question him right after that, but you know what? When you think about all the factors, he made exactly the right call. And there were a lot of people that said, well, he should have tried to go over to LaGuardia or whatever. And I said, yeah, but here's the problem. I said, what? And I said, if on final where his engines aren't running, if he hits some turbulence that's unexpected, he could sink in and take out an apartment complex or a hotel or something on short final. What he did is he minimized the risk. And with him, a lot of people didn't realize this, but with him, um, um, he actually had flown seaplanes. And so if you think about landing in the river out there, at least it was a little bit of what he had done before. But he also made the choice that minimized risk. And he has my absolute compliments for that. But the bottom line is with pilots and all that, that's a part of this that, if you're just trying to tell people to do road academic things, you're in that dysfunctional first piece that I mentioned. But if you really build their mental processing to a point where they truly begin to understand the operational situational awareness and what decisions are exactly right given that situation and why, and what factors are coming on scene that I didn't expect. When
Yeah.
he saw all those birds, he didn't expect that. And he didn't expect to lose both engines, kind of thing. But it's just, all of that is something that can play out in aviation or leadership, but it's that helps your decision making, and
Goes hand in
people
hand.
people need to think about that, and it's those two things. So I just leave it with the listeners. Are you that first one, which is dysfunctional, or are you really building the awareness and the operational awareness and all of that in you and your team so that they can mentally process well and come
Mhm.
up with the right decisions?
Ooh.
And that's something that people need to think about for sure.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's remind everyone how we can contact you. Always a pleasure having you here. Thank you.
Okay. If you go to my website, coachingforrelevance.com, what you can do is if you go on the main page there and scroll all the way down to the bottom, it has my phone number on it, my cell phone, and my email. And if somebody wants to just have a conversation, as you've heard me say 100 times, I don't do sales pitches right off the front. Now, if somebody has a need, yeah, we'll come up with something. But if they want to just have a conversation, they can reach out and we'll have a conversation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, we are really excited that you're here. Always wishing you the best of luck. Don't forget, pick up a copy of the book
There you
and movie coming soon. Hopefully, can't wait to see it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Well, I'll
Have
tell
a
you
great
what,
day.
I appreciate it, my friend. You have a wonderful one. Okay.
You too. Thanks again. Bye-bye,
Okay.
Randy. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.